It's Saturday, August 8th, and you're watching a special election edition of This Is Now on HNN.
And we need some changes as well here in the state of Oahu.
Voter turnout is already way up this primary election day, as most of Hawaii votes by mail.
We have taken action to address it.
This as the state reports another death related to COVID-19 and a cluster of cases at Honolulu Hale where voting is taking place.
We don't provide the resources.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that's one of the things he said, but he said he has nothing.
During an unannounced visit, senators find the health department overwhelmed by the surge.
My administration has been working around the clock in good faith to reach an agreement with Democrats on additional China virus relief.
Plus, new today, President Trump signs executive actions after stimulus talks break down on Capitol Hill. That's coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thank you for watching this special edition of This Is Now. I'm Jonathan Jared Sapi, coming to you from our HNN control room. This is where our team is working hard behind the scenes, getting ready for tonight's extensive team coverage of the 2020 primary election. HNN will be tracking all the major races from across the state. Our special coverage begins with our normal 5 p.m. newscast on KGMB and KHNL and all our digital platforms. Then our special election coverage continues from 6 to 8 p.m., followed by another special show from 10 to 11 tonight. We'll have much more on all that in just a moment, but for now, let's toss it over to Ashley, who has the latest coronavirus news and more on how it's impacting the election.
Thanks, John. The State Department of Health is reporting another patient with COVID-19 has died, along with 231 new cases. That's a new daily record. Officials say Hawaii's latest fatality is an Oahu man who was older than 60. His death is being recorded as the 31st death since the pandemic began. A previous fatality was removed from the state's death toll after further investigation. Meanwhile, DOH says 223 of the new infections reported are on Oahu. 5 are on the Big Island and 3 are on Maui. It's the second day in a row that Oahu has seen 200 cases or more, and it comes on primary election day. While most voters are casting their ballots by mail this year, some are still opting to vote in person. Honolulu Hale is one of 2 voter service centers on Oahu, and last night the city confirmed a new cluster at the Hale. The city says at least 10 people have been infected. Officials say they've implemented their COVID response program and might have to close down the building, but not until after today's election. The city says it has enhanced safety measures for anyone casting ballots in person, and that's where our Mark Carpenter is headed for tonight's special Hawaii News Now election coverage, which kicks off at 5 p.m.
Yeah, everyone waiting to see what it's going to look like when you have the mail-in voting. Well, you actually have in-person voting at Honolulu Hale. Officials say the turnout was fantastic. More than 400 people casting their votes by 1 p.m. And some of the people we talked to said, you know, they're voting and they're looking for change and a candidate who is different.
To me, it's really very important because we wanted to make sure that, you know, we can surpass all this, what's going on with our economy right now. And we need some changes as well here in the state of Oahu.
And just a reminder, there are only 2 voter service centers here on Oahu, Honolulu Hale and Kapolei Hale. They both close at 7 p.m., but officials say if there are still people waiting in line to vote, they will be accommodated. The first printout of results is expected to be released online shortly after 7 p.m. That batch will include votes counted through Friday. The second printout is expected around 10 p.m. That will have about 80% of all votes. The final results won't be released until Sunday morning, so if there are some races that are really close, we may not know the result and the winner until tomorrow.
Yeah, and we at Hawaii News Now are here for all of your election coverage. Keahi Tucker, Stephanie Lum, Mahealani Richardson will be on the anchor desk tonight. Lisa Kubota will be at the Hawaii Convention Center where the ballots are being counted. Ash and I will be at the Oahu Voter Service Centers, and the rest of our team, including Jonathan, will be working hard to bring you the latest developments. Let's send it back to him for more on tonight's big races.
I'm joined now by HNN Managing Editor Daryl Huff, who's got his coffee ready for a long night ahead. Thank you, Daryl. I know you've been working hard behind the scenes, making sure our coverage goes off smoothly tonight. So let's talk about the big races of the evening. What are those looking like?
Well, obviously the Honolulu mayor's race with 5 very strong candidates at the top of the ticket. The polls that we've taken along with Civil Beat indicate that Rick Blangiardi, our former boss, is quite likely to carry the night, although this is just the preliminary to a runoff. It doesn't look like he'll have enough votes to win this outright, which takes a majority of the votes that are cast. So right behind him are Colleen Hanabusa, Keith Amamiya, and then Kim Pine is right behind them. Our polls kind of indicated, if you look at the prior poll that was done by the Honolulu Star-Advertiser, you look at our poll, you can see that in a prior poll that we did, 3 polls in a row, you could see that Blangiardi was kind of trending upwards in each of those polls, and Amamiya was trending upwards in each of those polls, and I think Kimberly Pine sort of trended up a little bit. So if you look at the trajectory of these candidates, I would say that probably Keith Amamiya, of the ones that are clumped in second place, is the likely one to rise to second place, although don't hold me to that.
Everyone always wonders in relation to the actual election day, when was that poll taken? When was our poll taken?
Our poll was actually taken, okay, I got to think about this. Our poll was actually taken in the weekdays prior to last weekend. Okay, so I think an awful lot of people cast their votes last weekend because they wanted to get it in a mailbox or get it to a drop box by Monday or Tuesday. So I think a lot of votes were probably cast last weekend. That's why right now we're looking at very, very high voter turnout. The ballots already in-house. So our poll was taken right before that weekend because we announced the results the following Tuesday, just last Tuesday. So I think many people had made up their minds by the time they were in the poll. The undecided, that poll dropped very dramatically on the mayor's side. I have to look at it, but the undecided went from something like 40% down to 13% by last week. So only 13% of the 13% who were undecided, assuming they vote. So there's not going to be a lot of movement in those results.
All right, let's talk about another big race everyone's looking at, prosecutor's office. What did the polling look like there?
It's very similar, actually, to the mayor's race. You see one stronger candidate, that's Steve Alm, a former judge, former federal prosecutor, very well known, sometimes controversial, because he was running a program called Hope. And Hope took on some of the tougher offenders and threw them in jail repeatedly for things like drug tests. But a few of them committed some pretty heinous crimes when they were out, and it's unfortunate with the COVID crisis. We expected to have a quite vigorous campaign, but it was very difficult for people to campaign. That said, both Jackie Esser, public defender, and Megan Cowell, former public defender, but also former prosecutor, but also now a defense lawyer. They both ran ads. They both campaigned. Steve Alm, I don't know that I saw many ads from him, if any.
Yeah, I saw through Facebook.
And both of them, Jackie Esser and Megan Cowell, picked up a lot from one poll to the next. And so that's really a battle for second, whoever gets to run against Steve Alm primarily.
And then any other big races to watch? There's some county mayoral races, some state races.
Well, there's the Big Island mayor's race. Yep. Harry Kim in his 80s, running for re-election after a really tough 4 years involving the TMT and a volcano, all these many crises he had to deal with, and now the COVID crisis, up against Mitch Roth. He's probably the best known of the candidates challenging him.
Yeah, and of course everyone's looking to see how Kaika Marzo.
Kaika Marzo, a social media hero down there. It's the Big Island is known for being very quirky in its voting habits. So I wouldn't even try to predict that. I didn't see any polling on it, but that's fun. And then City Council, we've got 5 open seats.
Wow.
Because we haven't unelected any of City Council members, so they all termed out. So 5 of them termed out. So we're going to have an entirely brand new City Council. And one of the couple good, well-known candidates there, Andrea Topola, running in the Leeward District. She's a very strong candidate. She had a lot of money left over from running for governor. Augie T, in a nearby district in Eva, but he's also got a former state senator running against him. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens.
And then in the state races, we've got Kim Kakko re-entering her race to politics, right?
That ends up being a very important race because she's running against the State House Speaker, Scott Saiki, Psyche, if Psyche loses that race, and this is a winner-take-all primary, if Psyche loses that race, it really could upend the leadership in the state house. And it's being pitched as a more progressive Koku Iwamoto versus a more, I won't say conservative, he's not a conservative by any stretch, but a more traditional Democrat. Yeah. And so that could be really interesting to see where the electorate goes there.
All right, Daryl, thank you so much for joining us. I know you got to get back to the newsroom. A lot of news to cover tonight for sure. Let's toss it back over to Ashley with news of a big story we broke yesterday on HNN.
Now, Mark, your latest report was pretty compelling. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, basically a group of state senators who are frustrated with the Department of Health's response to the pandemic, they basically just dropped by the department unannounced to get answers.
Yeah, earlier this week, this was something else. So you had the Senate Coronavirus Committee grilling Dr. Sarah Park, the state's top epidemiologist, on the number of contact tracers. That has been a hotbed issue throughout this entire pandemic. The Senate committee feels they aren't getting any straight answers. The department isn't being very forthcoming, so they invited Hawaii News Now to come with them to head to Kinauhale.
Okay, she said going to far what?
When the committee of senators made the walk from the Capitol to Kinauhale, they were led directly to the office of state epidemiologist Sarah Park. But it didn't take long for the grilling to begin. Senator Donna Mercado Kim demanded to see the contact tracers, wondering why the department isn't using available private organizations to help.
We don't provide the resources.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that's one of the things he said. But he said he has nothing. He's been talking with
does HIEMA provide them resources then?
I don't know who provides them resources, but we can't. We don't have things to give them. We do.
But what about direction or what you need from them?
We do provide that.
He said he hasn't gotten anything.
No, that's no.
I can show
Sarah, can you show us where your case investigators are?
Yes, I can.
They found just a handful of overwhelmed investigators.
131 cases. How are you able to
that
handle
one that's
all
being
of
trained.
You're not. And what about your supervisor? Do they know you have this many cases?
Pretty sure we all.
But we've asked them and they haven't. They said they don't know.
I asked this morning because I was like, we're basically prioritizing now those over 65, and those are going to be the first ones because they're like the high risk cases. So then there needs to be a way for us to sort that out, like who are actually the ones over 65.
So what about if they're not over 65? You don't get contacted?
No. I got a call today from someone who said yesterday was daytime and no one ever called him. And I was like, well, we made it through, I guess.
A few cubicles over, another investigator flooded with nearly 200 cases.
Well, right now I'm at 192.
What?
Yeah.
192 cases?
Yeah, on my queue. But I haven't had a chance to go back and like close cases that are probably already, past their release date. But some days I get 20 or 30 and I can't get through 30 in one day.
So how long before you get to them? Could be 3-4 days?
Yeah, whenever. It's just whenever the nurses get through that list.
Senators were disturbed by the cluttered offices.
Oh, this is interesting.
And finally, a room with National Guard members doing actual contact tracing. Then our stay comes to an end. So by our count, nearly a dozen at Kinauhale working on contact tracing, but only 5 designated tracers. Dr. Park tells us the majority of her staff is working from home or other locations, and she's pleased the senator stopped by, not disputing she's understaffed for the critical task.
I'm really glad, and honestly, I hope what they see, they realize that, okay, we need more in terms of staffing, resources, space, equipment. We've been supporting ourselves through federal grants. And as I said to the committee yesterday, they come with a lot of strings.
Funding is not the issue. I think it's the organization, it's having the wherewithal and the urgency of saying, how do we do it, and just doing it.
Although the Department of Health says it has access to nearly 450 UH-trained contact tracers, Dr. Park contends bringing them on is not that easy.
You cannot just take someone just because they have clinical background or epi background. They have to be trained on what we do. If you've never done what we do, you can't just start day one. You're going to cause more problems than help.
So yeah, it's not easy to bring on 200 people immediately, but it's been since April and then June when they had the cases. So you would think that we would be, slowly getting into it.
The Department of Health tells us they plan to activate roughly 40 more tracers by next week, and there is some discussion of using workspaces at the Hawaii Convention Center, which were set up in response to unemployment claims. Mark Carpenter, Hawaii News Now.
Now let's get to some really important news out of Washington, D.C. with negotiations over a new coronavirus relief package collapsing in Congress. President Trump signed some emergency orders today. Let's turn it over to Michael George with the very latest.
Coronavirus disease. President Trump signed executive orders Saturday aimed at providing economic relief for millions of Americans.
My administration has been working around the clock in good faith to reach an agreement with Democrats on additional China virus relief.
The president's move comes after negotiations with Congress over a new relief package hit a wall. Whether the president has the legal standing to act on his own remains unclear. His actions are designed to defer evictions, payroll taxes, and student loan payments, and extend enhanced unemployment benefits at $400 a week. Democrats are seeking to extend the $600 a week that expired over a week ago. On Capitol Hill, administration officials and Democratic lawmakers couldn't reach a compromise on the overall price tag for a new relief bill.
What they want is a $2.5 trillion blank check.
Come back when you are ready to give us a higher number.
They want to bail out states that have been badly managed by Democrats, badly run by Democrats for many years.
More than 30 million Americans are receiving unemployment benefits as the coronavirus pandemic batters businesses across the nation. In early April, Mary Benedetto was laid off from her job cleaning lounges at the San Francisco International Airport.
The $600, the federal fund, it really helped me. I could pay off my bills.
But given a choice, Benedetto says she would go back to work because she loved her job. Michael George, CBS News.
That's going to do it for this special edition of This Is Now. A reminder, we'll be tracking all those important races from across the state tonight. Our special coverage begins with our normal 5 p.m. newscast on KGMB and KHNL, and that will be streamed on our digital platforms as well. Then our coverage continues from 6 to 8 p.m., followed by another special show from 10 to 11 tonight. And remember, you can always get results as they come in on HawaiiNewsNow.com and our HNN app. For sure, an exciting night to come, so stay with us. We'll bring you the very latest developments as they unfold.